Alrighty, so what do you do when you have fence issues? Well, the first thing that helps identify a fence issue is when you have one of those on your driveway. That means the electric fence isn't working. So we've got to get her back in the pasture, and we have to test the fence and see why it's not working. So it's as good a time as any to do a discussion on how to test your fence and how to maintain it and how to troubleshoot issues. So we'll start there and we'll see if we can get Big Girl back in the pasture. Okay, so obviously the first thing we need to do is find out where the pig is getting out. And the good thing about a pig is they can leave a pretty good telltale sign. So you can see, here's the fence line. Here's some gutted pasture. Here's my ditch line that's all torn up. So what I see here is that one of my insulators is broken off from my one of my cheap posts. And that's and my step-in posts, both insulators are broken off. So that's elevated that fence so much, pig's going under it. Now that sow should still be hitting that fence though and getting a bite from that electricity. So I think I got multiple issue here. Not only do I have fence down, but I think I have a bad charge, or it's not getting enough juice. So what I recommend is a fence charger. Now there's all kinds of fence chargers out there. So this one is a Zareba, however you pronounce it. But it is a fence tester that has the electrodes on the end and has a ground probe. So what you do in this situation is you stick the ground probe in the ground, of course, and put your fence on the display and see what it calculates there. Still counting, still counting. So I'm getting a whopping 1.28, which is not good at all. I should be getting, pretty lousy actually, I should be getting about 8. So a 1.28 is roughly 1200 kilovolts, and that's not going to kill anything. So we need a little more juice than that. So we gotta figure out what's going on. So obviously the first thing you'd look for is fence on the ground. You'd look for a log laying across it. But we're gonna go ahead and take this opportunity to kind of go back to the beginning and do a true maintenance here. We'll start with the ground and work our way out as we figure out what's going on here. Okay, so we're going to start here at the charger, and a little bit more detail on the fence charger. I kind of hit that pretty quickly, or the fence tester is you can get all different types of testers. This one is what I would consider kind of a middle of the run as far as features and cost. This one I believe is less than $100, maybe even $50. But it has the probes, it has the ground rod, and of course just gives you a readout of what it's testing there. Nicer testers would tell you that you've got a ground somewhere this way or that way. It gives you some information. The real nice ones, you can actually put it on the fence if you see an error, and you can hit a button and it'll send a signal through the wire to the charger to turn it off and on. So it's kind of a remote on and off switch if you're way out of the pasture and you're working on something there and you don't want to walk all the way back and unplug it, or do like I do, scream at the kids to tell them unplug it. So this is kind of a basic, what I consider basic. There's some other ones that just light up. Wouldn't even mess with those. So I would at least start with something like this. So what are we going to do? We're here at the charger. We're going to do a test real quick off the main wire coming from the charger and see what we're getting there. Can you bring the camera over there, Mr. Readout? Still counting up there. So yeah, a 1.52. So again, that stinks on ice. That's not going to hold anything back. So we've got to really troubleshoot this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to unplug this first. And up here, Kimmo. And I'm going to take this apart. So I'm going to start here with the hot lead off, and then the ground lead off. Oh, see, that's a little rigid, so that's going to stand up. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to plug this back in. So now it's obviously clicking, but it's not hooked up. It's not hooked up to ground, nor is it hooked up to the hot wire. So what's the purpose of that? Well, the purpose of that is to test. So now I'm going to put the ground rod on the ground post. And I'm going to put the hot on the hot post and see what I get. So that's 13.5. So that's 13.5 kilovolts. That's cooking bacon right there. That's what we want. So that shows you the potential of your charger. So that's the whole point in doing that, is to show you the potential of your charger. This, according to this meter, because obviously all meters are going to be different, according to this meter, this charger at its most optimum should be able to put out 13.5 kilovolts. And we were at 1.5. So obviously big issues there. So what do we got to do? Well, I'm going to start with the ground and we'll work our way that way, because there's a neat little test I can show you with the ground. Okay, so I've put it back together, of course, put my ground lead back on and my hot back on. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to test the ground. So instead of putting the tester on the hot, I'm going to put the ground rod in the ground, and I'm actually going to put my tester on the ground rod and see what we get. Actually put it on the ground wire, see what we get. Okay, so I'm getting 1.19 kilovolts on my ground. So what I've read and what I understand is that when I get that much voltage on my ground, then I have an issue there. Either my ground field isn't big enough, I don't have enough ground material, enough rods in the ground, or I've obviously got poor connections here. Now again, in my previous video, when we're talking about the 5 essential things for electric fence hookup, we talked about the difference between a insulated ground wire and a non-insulated, and I've said I've always gone with non-insulated, and that it's I haven't really seen any issue. Well, this probably is one of those issues. A non-insulated ground is starting to corrode. My connection points with the grounding rods are probably getting a little corroded. There's just not a good contact. So the first thing I'm going to do is scuff up these attachment points, get some good contacts, almost like cleaning contacts on a battery post. Just going to clean them up and try to get better metal on metal contact, and then we'll do a test there and see what we get. Okay, so just scuffed up those connection points on those 3 ground rods. Let's see if that made any improvement. Again, we had 1.19 voltage on our ground wire, so we'll test that here and see what we've got. .21, so we're going the wrong direction. Perfect. Okay, so I've cleaned all my ground rods and connections and got those cleaned up really well. Still can't get below 1.16 kilovolts on my ground. So there's some other things I'm going to have to do, and again, maybe even have to research a little bit, make sure I'm not lying to myself. But right now, I know my grounds are really clean. I know I've got a good connection on those 3 ground rods. Those are 3 6-foot ground rods, so I got a lot of ground field there. There's tons of water around here, so it's not an issue with that. What I'm going to do is, of course, go around now and find any obstructions, start disconnecting sections of fence that I know are issues. This is where it comes in handy having a kit. I have a fence repair kit that I keep in the side-by-side, and I go around and find, if I find any breaks or line down anywhere, then of course I've got the components and tools I need to fix it right there. Okay, so just doing a real quick preliminary around the barn and some other areas. There's a spot where I have woven fence and electrical wire running on the same posts. Now I've got the electric wire offset so it doesn't touch, but the pigs have pushed that woven fence in, and there's actually one spot where the woven fence was touching the electric line, and you can even see that there's a little bit of an arc burn on it. So just by pulling that off of there, when I tested this, remember we were 2.5 kilovolts just in fixing that one spot. I'm now, that's getting up 3.6. So I picked up a little over 1 kilovolt just in fixing that one spot. So we're just going to go around and just keep looking for other areas where there's issues. Okay, so we'll repair this area while we're here. Again, this isn't necessarily making ground contact, but we know that's where the pig's gone under. This post gave up the ghost, and of course this one was broken off. So we want to get it down tight so they can't feel they need to go under there. So we're just going to use one of the T-post insulators that clip on. Now the thing I've noticed, since this post is no longer being used, that's created some sag in the fence all the way along the pasture line. So the grass is getting taller now, and so that fence is sagging. So, well, one thing obviously that's good and handy to have on your electric fence line are these tensioners. Now these are just cheap plastic tensioners. I've noticed they break really easily when the deer run through them. Now see, this one's actually missing a couple teeth, but they are still handy. You can obviously give them a couple cranks there to tighten up, and that really takes the sag out of your fence. And may just even have to give it just a partial twist. So that should lift that up off of there, and at least get it out of the vegetation, get it off the ground. So I may even take a step-in post and put it in here to get another spot to get it off the ground. But I haven't found any better tensioners than these. There's got to be some out there that are better made. These are very poorly made. I've seen the high tensile fence line tensioners that are the kind that even have a little wrench to kind of gear them up there, but those are for high tensile, so I don't know if they would work on something like this or if that's kind of overkill. They're definitely more expensive. These are like, you know, $4 for a pack of 4 or 3. So we'll go around and again continue to get our fence off the ground, see what we can do there. Well, this spot is obviously a problem. This is my fence is under here somewhere, but this is multiflora rose. And what I actually did, this is kind of my own doing. I hate this stuff. It is some of the nastiest briar. And what I did is I threw a bunch of, had some old hazelnuts and almonds that we took out of the freezer and were going bad. So I tossed them to the pigs. And I thought, well, let's just toss these into the briar patch here, and they'll eat some of it down and maybe uproot the briar patch. And they did uproot a bit of it, but they uprooted it over onto my fence. So here it's laying on the fence. And there's even a piece of wood laying there. So this stuff is hateful. That's a British import, so all my British friends, thanks a lot. Okay, so what we've discovered is as soon as I plug that back in, just moving this stuff around a little bit, I heard another, obviously I hear the charger fire, hear it clicking, but then I heard another click over here, and I see where I've put wire around to make this a gate so I can take this off. It's actually grounded out against my T-post. So that's huge because those T-posts are going straight into the ground. That's making an instant ground there. So we're going to unplug and we're going to resolve this issue. Okay, so anybody looking at this would think, what a mess. And it is. So why is my electric fence in this bad a shape as far as all these issues with how it's spliced together? So as we're figuring out how we want to do our pig pastures, we're moving things around. You can see there's tire tracks here where I've got my tractor in and tried to pull some ditch lines. So I've had to take this down, wire breaks, you splice it. If you went back and replaced all your fence with a home run each time you broke a wire, then that would get kind of expensive. So we just put these little splices together and you get this. Well, what do I have going on here? Well, I'm bringing my wire all the way up my pasture line here, and it's connecting to this T-post. So this T-post is almost like a corner post in a sense. I've got it driven into the ground. The tension of the entire run, probably almost 100 yards, maybe 200 yards of run down the pasture, is being maintained by this T-post. So that's why I went with one of these shorter T-post insulators, because the long ones, they stick out so much, they'll bend and break. So I put this one on here, and even these teeth can break off sometimes. So I just wrapped it around a little closer on the inside where those main braces are, and that works fine as far as holding it, but the downside is obviously it's close to my T-post and hit one of the little nibs there and is grounding out. So this really isn't, this is a perfect example of kind of doing things halfway, Southern engineering, whatever term you want to call it, putting it together here, and I'm paying for it now. This should have had a nice, this should have been a true corner post. I shouldn't have put this gate. I should have actually built a gate, something different. Again, everything's in flux right now as we're still trying to figure out how we want the pigs pastured. We're trying to clear this land and even move the pigs out of here. So I hate to do too much permanent fencing. So again, you get what you pay for. When you cut corners, they show up sometimes and bite you in the hiney. Okay, so we got that issue fixed, and let's do another test here. Let's see what we've got. 4.7. So we're gaining. Slowly but surely we're gaining on it. But again, my goal is, I've had this thing, as much fence as I have in, and again, you're obviously going to have impedance, all these little breaks that I've repaired, all of those issues, all those things are going to cause issues, cause impedance, cause resistance, I guess is the proper term. So I've got a lot of pasture under fence that's causing issues like this. So I'll have to go along the north ridge, or along the south ridge, and check those out and see what repair issues are. But actually 4.7 will keep the pigs back. That's just enough to tag them and keep them, get them to respect the fence there. So it's almost dark, so we're going to call a timeout here, and we'll try again tomorrow evening and see if we can do some improvements further up. Okay, well, tomorrow is now upon us. So tomorrow is today. Today is tomorrow. We can't figure that out when we do these types of videos. Anyway, it's the next day. As you can see, brighter sun. Still wearing the same shirt though, so don't let that fool you. I only change my shirt once a week, whether I need it or not. Okay, so what has transpired since last time, since a couple seconds ago? Well, what transpired is I've spent about an hour on the south ridge going along and just checking where the line is, possibly is down or has some issues. Issues is an understatement. I recorded a couple of the breaks, and it got to where there were so many of them I just stopped recording because it was a little ridiculous. But there were places where deer had obviously busted through, so the line was completely severed in two, so we had to repair that. Places where the fence had been stretched and was touching the ground. Places where, as I mentioned in previous videos, where I've used my where I used my poplar fence posts that rot out so quickly that they had just broken over and were laying on the ground. So were multiple places. Again, those nailing insulators that can handle that upward pressure broken off. So I probably replaced 20 insulators and probably 30 different places where it was down. So needless to say, that was shame on me for not doing patrols a lot sooner of the situation. So we have all the repairs taken care of. So the fence is off the ground, twigs, sticks, limbs, all that's off, so we don't have that grounding out. We have it still touching the grass a little bit in a couple places, but we're going to give it a test now and see what we get here. All right, so that's counting up to a 7.5. So we were, 4.7, I believe, last night. So 4.7, now up to 7.5. That's pretty good. Like I said, I've got tons of cheap repairs, things where I've just tied them together, all the things you're not supposed to do. And I can even tell, I don't think my mic's picking this up, but I can even tell where the fence now has a lot more juice on it, because I'm hearing it actually pop this grass. I could hear there's one over here, there's one right here in front of me, and there's one happening over here. So you can just hear it ticking. So it's actually burning that grass. It's going to pop that. Now obviously that's going to pull some of that charge away. So that's one thing I really, you don't want, but I guarantee you I come down here in a couple days and this grass will be brown in those spots where it's killed it. Obviously if there's a real heavy rain and the wet grass is laying on it, it won't do as much to burn the grass up, but it will eventually kill all this grass. Or I could get off my butt and come down here with a weed eater and trim this back. Well, here's one of those spots where it's grounding out, and I'll hold the mic down there so you can hear it ticking. Obviously it's nothing too crazy. Yeah, here it is. Obviously, if you touch the blade of grass that's touching the fence that's in the process of getting burned, then guess what? You're going to take a hit too. So a little bit of that transferred to my finger just now. Some people, you just can't teach them stuff. So yeah, that's actually starting to blacken that grass there in a couple places. Okay, one other thing that we noticed, if you recall last night, as I was, you probably recall that because I just said it a couple minutes ago, this time sequence thing really gets me. Talking about the voltage on the ground wire, getting 1.16, 1.23, how I'd read that anything above 1 means there's too much resistance, something's not going well there. So I cleaned up all my ground, even drove my ground rods down a little bit more, just seeing if maybe it encapsulated a little bit in the ground. nothing really really changed it there. When I finished up last night, still 1.23 actually is what I was reading on the ground wire, which is not what I wanted. So I was a little frustrated there, thinking, okay, maybe I do need to replace that wire, go to an insulated wire, but that just doesn't seem to make that much sense to me. But interestingly enough, and again, not fully understanding this, I went around, cleaned everything off the fence, and got 7.5. Well, I tested my ground wire, and my ground wire was 0.7. So it got down below that 1.0 threshold I was looking for, so it got down to 0.7. So the only thing I can surmise is obviously all those places where it's down, all those places where it's grounding out. I can't say the reverse polarity, but maybe it's just one of those things where that voltage just started piling up on the ground side. But anyway, just clearing that off fixed that ground issue. So when it comes time to troubleshooting, I can't say enough, having a good tester is where you want to start. So I just was in Tractor Supply today and found this tester hanging up there, and I believe it was either $39.99 or $49.99, but definitely less than 50 bucks. So this is a good investment. I definitely recommend that. And again, this is a Reba, and it goes up to 19.9 kilovolts is its maximum test. Anything after that will probably fry it. So just keep that in mind. But takes a little 9-volt battery. Other than that, you're good to go. That 9-volt battery's been in there. I've had this thing for about 4 years now, so solid. So definitely invest in that, but always start with the ground. If you're going to do troubleshooting, you got issues with your fence, your pigs aren't respecting it, your other animals aren't respecting it, they're busting through, then start with that. Start with the ground. Test your ground, see what you've got there, check your connections, clean those up if they need it. And then of course at that point it's time to walk the fence. Now if you've got wide open flat pasture, then that's going to be a lot easier for you. If you're climbing over hills and gullies like we are, then it takes a little bit more time. But obviously this grass, as if I don't come down here and do my maintenance and trim the grass back, then that's going to eventually start to ground that out again. It'll burn some of it, but it can't burn as much as fast as that grows. This is obviously super nutrient rich grass, since the pig pasture drains down into here. So this will get big and bushy in no time. So those things of course will wear your voltage down. But like I said, when it comes time to troubleshoot, start at home base, start at the charger, start with checking your ground with a good tester, and then to go out from there. And that'll help you figure out what's wrong with your charger. Okay, we'd really like to encourage everyone interested to go to redtoolhouse.com, and at the bottom part of the home page, click on the sign up for our newsletter. And again, we're not going to blow you up. We send an email out every once in a while, let you know what's going on. But everyone that's on our email newsletter list is signed up automatically for our drawings. We're a monthly drawing that we're giving away nice gifts. This month, the time that you see this, it'll be right at the end of April. So there'll still be a couple days. You have a chance to sign up for the newsletter and automatically be entered for the drawing for the multi-tool, the StormTech multi-tool. It's about a $40 tool, and we're giving that away this month. So be sure to do that. Also check us out on Facebook, facebook.com/redtoolhousefarm. Give us a thumbs up to let us know you like this video, and subscribe if you haven't. We'd appreciate it. And take care.
Okay.
All right, on the count of 3. 1, 2, 3.
You sicko. You should be making this face.